I'm a fan of fantasy, so I listen to Easy and Alan on their Just a Fantasy Fan podcast. During the show, you can live chat with Easy and Alan at LennyMelnickFantasySports.com. Rumour has it, Lenny only swings one way, with Launch Angle. Now here's Easy and Chris Allen.
And welcome to another evening of a Fantasy Fan Sportscast. I'm Easy Kill, my co-host Chris Allen, at Chris Allen FFWX, which we will talk a little weather here in a little bit because I think we do have some severe weather down south. So first of all, just tell people down there in the Hurricane Michael area, be careful and take it easy. Don't worry about football. Just be safe. And then if you make it through and, football, get your mind off of it, then great. Join us back and enjoy some fantasy. Chris, how you doing tonight?
No, not too bad. A little relaxing here this evening. Not too many, no football tonight. No articles due as of right now. So I get to relax for a little bit today. I
got you. It's just, and you're right. Do you do any Wednesday waivers or are all yours Tuesday?
All of mine are Tuesday. So all of my my 3 clients that I have for draft day consultants, I take care of all of their rosters on Tuesday nights. And then also my 4 redraft leagues and 3 dynasty leagues, I think, something like that. 7 of my own leagues that I also put in waivers for, and then of course the Scott Fishbowl as well. So, but they're luckily enough, Scott Fishbowl, their waivers don't process. He has them set up to process. I think it's 11 or noon, but Pacific time. So I could actually put my waivers in Wednesday morning if I wanted to, and they process in the early afternoon. But yeah, a ton of stuff. Everything's so busy Tuesday night.
I think I've got one league that does Wednesday, but I just do it on Tuesday night when I'm doing all of them. And
just knock them all out at once. Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, so that's kind of it. Again, I want to thank, we actually are, everyone out there is listening to us. We got people in the chat room, Cub and Lou. And we appreciate you out there. We actually have an audience. We're getting there, Chris, after 9 months of this, and it's kind of fun to have.
That's what we worked for.
People. So, we appreciate everybody, and, don't be afraid to shoot us some, questions or notes, anything in the chat room at LennyMelnickFantasySports.com. Just go there, click on the chat room. You can chat as a guest if you don't want anybody to know you, or sign in. It's a fun chat room. We have a good time. And people will help even there answer questions, everything. So we appreciate that. I'll just jump in just before we got on the show. We talked about, you said you had a meeting today about a podcast about a Debbie League, and I had to go, what are you talking about? Lou's out there. Lou Landers is a big fantasy guy. He probably knows what a Debbie League is. It definitely sounds like something I wouldn't get interested in at this time. I struggle. I don't even do any dynasty. So I'll let you tell people what a Debbie League is, and I kind of maybe get a little input on if you do any now. So first of all, tell people what a Debbie League is.
So Debbie League is Debbie is short for developmental, and that's where you're looking at college prospects and actually picking up and acquiring prospects at a very young age. So you might, so as we were talking before the show started, both myself and my co-host on my other podcast, the Dynasty Owners Manual podcast, we spoke with Ryan McDowell. He does work for, just a bunch of different sites, Roto World and a bunch of different ones. But he's a part of one of the Debbie leagues, and I guess in one of the stories he told us, I believe in one league, he actually picked up Antonio Brown, I think in either his first or second year of college, and just continued to carry him on his roster until he got to the NFL. And then afterwards, it's like he became, the history is kind of writes itself afterwards. But that's where a lot of the college scouting that a lot of us don't truly get into until players pop right before they declare for the NFL draft. That's when we start. That's when I start to care. Is when we know players are going to be, it's either their junior or senior year. We know they're going to declare next year, and that's when I start to care. So but these guys, they look at this stuff years in advance.
How big are the rosters?
Roster size is typically a little bit larger. Dynasty leagues are typically around 24, 25 players. Debbie leagues, they can expand those up to 30 players. It just kind of depends on the format, but it allows you to play your normal roster where you might have a main mix of guys that are currently in the league,
right?
Some rookie prospects, some people that just came out, and then you would tack on a few extra slots for Devy.
So how many do you have? More than one draft? Do you have like a college draft, a rookie draft, and then a regular draft? So there's multiple drafts. Okay.
Yeah, so they set them up so that you wind up doing you'll do your it's almost like a supplemental draft, which will happen earlier in the season, and then you might have your rookie draft, like your NFL rookie draft, shortly after the NFL draft, in like the late spring, early summer, somewhere in there. And then you would wind up having like your actual like redraft draft like later on, like if any of that goes on.
Cool. So, yeah. I again, Lou's out there, I think, and Cub. It seems like something would be popular in baseball too, with all the minor league teams out there. I know obviously there's dynasty. Well, I guess in baseball it's a little different because there's not as many college. They're already semi-pro people also, I guess. So semi-pro. Minor leagues and all that. So most of the dynasty leagues in baseball already are dealing with that group of people. Right. Where I guess I get that now. Where in football, the dynasty thing is just keeping rookies. This is kind of more like dynasty for baseball, where you're keeping, college kids, which in baseball would be minor leaguers.
Exactly. That's the perfect analogy for it.
Mm-hmm. I got you. All right.
Yeah. So I mean, it really relies on your understanding of talent and how well, and like if a player shows that talent at a very young age and you can see it translating to the NFL, then if you hit, then you don't even have to spend a premium rookie draft pick as you would in Dynasty on these players, because you pick them up, when they were 17, 18, 19 years old.
So obviously you're committing to football.
Exactly.
I mean, I would assume people playing those kind of leagues, they're football people. They're committing to football, and paying attention to all that.
They're watching more of the Friday, Saturday games, like Appalachian State, the playing at 1:00 on a Saturday afternoon. They're watching those games where I'm cutting the grass. Or waiting for the Sunday games to come on. I mean, they're studying that film where most of us, we don't care.
Right. Well, okay. Well, it's not a matter of not caring. I mean, I watch a lot of college football, but I'm not watching it to watch the talent. I mean, you know what I'm saying? I'm watching the teams. I'm watching the play. I'm not necessarily scouting players or anything like that. And
well, sure. I mean, but like, remember when we all knew that Ezekiel Elliott was we knew he was gonna declare, and we knew he was gonna be a huge talent. So everybody
around here, because he was a Buckeye, and that's about as far as I get. I'm trying to think. I don't know if you listen to the local radio, WING, Mark somebody. I know, he has a couple Buckeye talk shows and stuff like that. And, and I listen to those because they're talking Buckeyes. I couldn't imagine listening to all those for every college, team actually, because those type people seem to know more than a lot of other people. The guy who is, the Buckeye guy, you know what I'm saying? I mean, there's a couple guys here in Ohio that are Buck Nuts, I think is one of them, where they have a couple of radio shows that syndicate, and so obviously they get deeper into Buckeyes things and all that. And yeah, I guess, I mean, I didn't have too many other sports because we really got a bunch to talk about in regular NFL. There's so much going on, but I mean, I know one of our main recruits, I want to say a wide receiver, this commit thing with college, I never know what it really means. You're committed until the day you decide not to be committed. But I know we lost a wide receiver to Indiana, of all places. But actually, if you look at Indiana's kind of been known for some wide receivers in the last 10, 15 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So they have a young quarterback, and they've done a lot with quarterbacks in the last few years. So I've kind of followed that because a kid from my community plays for Indiana, but it's that's about as far as I've followed the college stuff, just the Buckeyes things and all that. Are these leagues normally, I mean, obviously that's the problem with, I've just struggled with even getting in a dynasty football league just because I hear of so many of them, it's hard to find a good committed group of people, because you got to be committed for enough years to make it worthwhile or make it pay off. So
yeah, and that's part of the issue. And a lot of those guys, I think Lou and like Cubub, I know they were just talking about that in the chat, was that you need to have that group of guys that are in there for the long haul. And I know that a lot of leagues that do Devi, they won't let you in unless you not necessarily sign a contract, but it's more or less on your word that you're in it for the long haul.
Do they do any kind of financial obligation, meaning, the league costs this much, but the payouts are based on years down the road, so that once you invest, you got to kind of stay or you're not going to get paid out. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
some of them use, there's a website, I believe it's called LeagueSafe, where they will set aside, they will set aside that money so that once everything is dealt out, it gets dealt out properly, so that if you are committed, then you will pay up your league fees and then it'll distribute it properly. So yeah, there is a way that, once you say that, I'm going to be in this league and I'll be in it for however long, then you're committed to it.
Easy struggles with just being in a keeper league. It's like, gosh, I'm just so much. There's so much of win today in me. It's just hard.
I'm the same way. I mean, I've got a few dynasty rosters, but the way that I draft and also the way that I conduct trades in my dynasty leagues is I'm always in win now mode. So a lot of my players, I'll sell off draft picks in order to win this year. And I did a couple of startups this year as well. And I was picking mostly players that were relevant for this year with an eye for 2019 and 2020. Right. But still, my focus is on 2018. And if I can draft well for 2018, then at least that sets me up for 2019 if I get at least some relatively young players. So I was focusing on Kirk Cousins, Adam Thielen, some guys that are good now, but they've got at least a few more seasons ahead of them.
I draft in my keeper league. I draft when the draft is there. It's only been a 2-keeper league, but I manage those 2 keepers almost always in my mind to be trade bait, meaning, like this year I grabbed Baker Mayfield as my last pick. And this is a weird league, and we've talked about it, where you can only roster 2 quarterbacks. Everyone's like, why would you roster guys not even starting? Well, trust me, he wasn't the only key in the Zeke Elliott trade where I got Zeke, but it was the final step, meaning the guy wasn't willing to do the trade. And then I said, well, I can throw in Baker Mayfield, who you get to keep as a 17th rounder next year. And the guy at that point was already 0-3. So he hadn't given up, and he was getting a few players, but he also knew, okay, this was at least a shot, to help him. Sure. Because Zeke wasn't keepable, but, it just makes it hard. So, Cub, I know you're out there, and Lou, I'd be curious if in the chat room, just type, I'm curious in baseball, especially some of the longest times you've been in any dynasty leagues, if you are at all. I got Lou seems to be the kind of guy that would play a few, be in a dynasty league or two. And Cub, same thing. So I'd just be curious, because I said, I just struggle with even a keeper league, and committing to a dynasty league is, one of these days I'm going to have to do it. I'm going to have to break down and test the waters, I guess.
Let me know. I know quite a few guys that are more than happy to bring you into their league and make sure that any of the rules that they set up, the format will be just like a redraft league. It's just that the rosters are larger, and then now you deal with the rookie picks and all that. It can't be that simple. It really can't.
I see. So you're always looking for easy money. Is that what you're saying? You got a group of people that go, yeah, we'll take Easy's money. That's all right.
I'm in one of those myself, because I'm still trying to get the hang of player value. And if somebody were to offer me, today, I saw a trade go down for, it was Devontae Adams for, I think it was Devontae Adams for AJ Green and a 2020 second. And it's I'm seeing the trade go down. I'm like, well, how do you value, so it's the age.
Right, because obviously AJ Green is older, and you have Adams, who's obviously, newer. Obviously it's really his first full year. He's been in the league a few years, but it's his first full year. So, and then you got to figure what's a 22 pick worth. Yeah. And obviously that's the problem. To me, it's not worth anything in a league that may dissolve. So that's my point. You have to be in a league where it's going to.
And everybody's committed. And a lot of those leagues, once you get into them, you'll meet folks that have the same mindset where they're looking forward.
There you go. That's what I need. I need mindset. I need mindset.
Mm-hmm. So, and they all got it. The guys I'm with in those leagues, they're all there, man.
What I'm making fun of is my own mindset. That's the issue I have. That's all. So again, I did not really jot down any sports things this week, because I truly I was into football the whole week, it seemed like so many things were happening, and the injuries and stuff like that. And and like I said, I'm now doing a podcast on Sunday mornings. I'm doing the roundtable on Tuesday nights, and I think it's educating me more. Meaning, I think I probably know more now than I used to.
Yeah.
But the problem seems to be using it, having the time to then use it, but not really. I think what I'm doing now is because, I've done this long enough and I'm getting this information from doing the podcast and stuff like that, that you do things just natural. You didn't even realize, I already picked that guy up, or I got him a week ago, or you pissed me off. I was trying to move my roster around today to get Carson, running back from Philadelphia. And then Clement. I was truly moving my roster around, and I threw out one trade offer. So I thought, well, maybe I can make a trade before I drop somebody. Then I finally went, I'm going to I'll drop my defense and pick him up. Jesus Christ. I go back to pick him up, and Chris Allen got him. I'm like, that's God damn it.
I picked him up, but he was still on waivers.
I know.
I couldn't believe he was still on waivers.
Okay, let's start there. It's on one of my notes. I mean, my issue was I didn't need him. I have pretty decent running backs, but obviously I think he has a chance. But this still, I think, isn't this going to be a committee of 2, maybe 3 if Sproles comes back here in another week?
Yeah, I mean, and that's how Doug Peterson has always used the running backs,
right? Which
was kind of surprising that Jay Ajayi still carried a 4th or 5th round draft pick in 12-team PPR leagues, because everybody knew, or at least everybody knew, that Doug Peterson rotates the backs. I mean, it was Jay Ajayi, Wendell Smallwood, Corey Clement. I mean,
okay. Being one of those people, I'll stop you. I think that was going to be better for Jay Ajayi. I really thought him getting 15, 18 carries a game, would keep him a little healthier. And we all know, 3 carries and he can get 80 yards. I mean, he has that bust out. So I was one of those that went wide receiver heavy, and I was willing to take Jay Ajayi, in a 4th or 5th round, maybe.
In that context, I could get behind that. If you went 0 RB, Jay Ajayi would be a fair RB2 in that case. Yes, absolutely. I'm with you there.
So, I mean, that was my thing. I just thought this would be a better, situation for him, maybe just because, there was going to be less out there. But, that's my thing. I wasn't because to be honest, in that league, if I'm not mistaken, Smallwood was out there also. And obviously Sproles was out there also. So, and technically any of those 3, depending on week to week,
they should all have. I mean, I think it'll be Smallwood and Clement. They have week to week RB2 value, and Sproles has RB2 flex value.
Right. So, and unfortunately, it wasn't even that big a deal. It was dropping. I could have just quickly dropped a defense and picked him up. Unfortunately, I have the Bears. And when the Bears were on bye last week, someone else had dropped the Ravens. So I had the Ravens. And I'm like, you know what? I think I could toss a Ravens defense in with somebody else that has a defense on bye this week, and maybe get something, and then still pick up Clement. And like I said, by the time I pissed around for about 45 minutes or so, and then I went back and said, that son of a bitch already took him. I was like,
scooped him up. It was like
whatever
this morning.
Whatever. I don't even know. I think me and you are still up pretty high in that league. So
I'm 3-2,
and I think I'm the same. 3-2 with a pretty strong. I lost a couple close ones. I mean, but unfortunately, the guy who's won it 2 years in a row is still undefeated, and he's a Patriots fan. So he drafts Patriots every year, and every time I think, oh, he's going to be screwed because he won't. And he always seems to pick the right ones, which I know is luck. It's like, cheesy peasy. He's won the Super Bowl 2 years in a row, and the league in between there. So he's technically won 3 in a row because we pay out for the season and when we pay out for the Super Bowl winner. So, I've paid him 3 times in a row. So, and his team, I mean, again, he's a big Patriots guy, and he keeps rolling that train, and it's kind of pissing me off.
Hey, if it ain't broke,
Right. Hey, man. And I guess like anything else, unfortunately, being a Bengals fan, it's been harder over the years to ride that train in fantasy. where the Patriots, obviously, if you pick the right Patriots, you're going to have a good week most of the time.
So, it's just in the first, for the last, I say 2 or 3 years that they start slow, first maybe a few weeks or so, but then after that, they pick it up. But I mean, it's a sure bet almost. I mean,
right. This year Gronk started fast, and now he's gone slow, and all the rest of them's the other way.
Yeah.
I didn't jot it down, but I know the big talk today, and I actually have seen it in one league already. Someone dropping Chris Hogan. Yep. So we'll just say that. Are you a drop Chris Hogan guy or keeping?
No, I'm dropping him. I'm dropping him everywhere. I just can't.
Okay.
It's almost a worse situation than trying to figure out which Patriots running back to figure out.
I agree. To a point. Other than the last two games, he's been on the field 95% of the plays. I mean, he is out there. And some people would say on a powerful offense, if you have somebody that's out there 95% of the plays and running routes, all of those, you got to keep him. I mean,
I don't know. I mean, if you're playing in a points per snap league, I mean, go ahead. But I need snaps because snaps don't always correlate to targets.
But again, they've done enough stat research to realize the more the more your players on the field in fantasy, the more likely he's going to get you fantasy points. I mean,
not true. Because if that were the case, then we'll look at Nick Chubb in what was it 2 weeks ago?
Okay, but that's the opposite. That's the opposite. He was in there specifically to run these three plays that were going to get him 113 yards. I mean,
true.
Where my point is, somebody who's a wide receiver that's on the field 50% of the time, sure, can maybe outscore Hogan 2 or 3 weeks in a row. The key is over a whole season, will they? If he's out there for 95%. I don't know. Right. Now, again, and I'm arguing because, I don't have him. See, I went the other way. I didn't even have him. But my point would be, and that's part of my do's and don'ts, you just have to be careful when you just drop somebody just because you heard it on a podcast. Yeah. The key is who are you dropping them for? That's always part of the deal.
Yeah, that's also,
the thing. I mean, my home league is pretty competitive and our rosters are big, so there's not much out there. So, I would keep Chris Hogan any day over what's out there right now for wide receivers. So, I mean,
sure.
That's my point. It's in fantasy, you have to look at everything. You can't just, go by what somebody says or whatever. You got to check your roster, see what's going on. And back to bye weeks. You know what? If I have to put him in a bye week because I'm stretching it or having issues again, I'd rather put someone out there that I know is at least going to be in the game, and get and we do know he can do what Chubb did. He can get 2 catches. He could have 95 yards and a touchdown in one game. He's done it. So, so that's really, part of it. The next thing is the Jags signing Jamal Charles. Do we care?
I mean, of course you should care. I mean, they only have TJ Yeldon and it's just them
and Jamal Charles now. I think that is it.
But Corey Grant, he broke his foot, so he's gone. And Leonard Fournette already quickly ruled out for week 6, and I don't expect to see him back until after their bye.
I know that's a lot of rumor now, which I think their bye's week 9, so they're expecting him back. And again, I have him in 2 spots. I have Yeldon in both those spots. I'm fine with it. Resting him up as long as Yeldon's going. The problem is in those leagues, because I'm already taking 2 spots up for 1 running back spot, I can't afford to pick up Jamar Charles also. So, I obviously can't get Yeldon's backup, right. Which, if Yeldon would go down, he does have value for sure at that point.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, but you need that injury to happen because we don't know where he's at in terms of conditioning, the playbook, and and all that jazz. But yeah, if he's a running back that's going to be on a team that sure does like to run the ball a lot, and they don't want to keep putting the ball in Blake Bortles' hands, then yeah, he has value.
Right. What about another injury, Jay Ajayi? What's odd about this injury is it sounds like he actually played a little while he had the ACL.
Yeah, he finished the game.
And it obviously didn't even come out until the next day that he even had the injury. Right. So, we kind of already touched on Philadelphia and their backfield. The issue I have with Philadelphia, I don't have much. And to be honest, I'd have to think if I have any Philadelphia on any team. I wasn't able to get Ertz in any case. I think he's still the main player right now to own on that team.
Pretty much.
They're in trouble, period. Just, luckily that conference sucks. or division. I guess I make sure what I want to say. I think there isn't that a consider. Again, I get my baseball. I think in baseball they call them divisions and
division.
Football,
yeah, the NFC East. Yeah,
but in that conference, I don't know. I mean, shit, the Giants still have a shot at winning it. I don't think any of them. I'm trying to think. You have the Giants, you have Philadelphia, you have Dallas,
Redskins.
And the Redskins. I can't think of any of them that have too many wins or losses. I mean, the
Redskins. Well, they lost last night.
Well,
they already had their
Monday
night, rather.
Yeah.
And they already had their bye. So I'm assuming right now the Redskins are 2-2, and they are atop of the division.
Right. And I think all of them have the ability, because of the league they're in or the division they're in, is also to roll a couple of wins in a row, especially
they're all with it. Yeah,
playing in their own division.
Yeah.
Luckily, I don't have any. I mean, that whole division, I don't have many players. It's not a division that this year's known for offense. I have Zeke on the team. Other than that, I have no other Cowboys. I don't think I have a Washington Redskin on one team. I think I started with Paul Washington or Richardson on a team, and I either moved him or I know I dropped him something. So I don't have that. I don't. I have Odell Beckham, who I have a note here about what he came out and said, and we'll just roll right into that. Do you think I actually think what he said is going to spark the Giants a little bit, and him? I do think what he said. I know a lot of people were upset. Non-football people, people on the outside just thinks he should keep his mouth shut. But what do you think of that situation?
I mean, I think that comparatively speaking to when it was last year and he was beating up the kicking net and like all the antics that they showed there on the sideline, I think this is a much calmer approach to the woes that keep befalling the Giants like every single season. So if he is this calm and if he's calmer, let's say, I'm not saying he's calm, but I said if he's calmer as to what he was in 2017 or even prior to when he was fighting with Josh Norman and getting kicked out of games, I think that should that leadership should show the rest of the team that he wants to compete, and that should pull the rest of the team in line in order to do the same, because they've got the talent.
Right.
Sterling Shepard, Saquon. I mean, as long as Eli just needs to be confident. That's all.
Exactly. And I think Eli needed this too. I think, I think it'll help Eli. I mean, so, I'm pretty, I'm on the side of, what I would agree. Do you do it in public? Could you have that speech, behind closed doors? And maybe he did. We don't know a whole lot, but, that's kind of a thing that's up in the air. You mentioned Monday night. The big deal today, a lot of the sports and fantasy shows, especially fantasy wise, was the Drew Brees record. Should we or do we care? Does it matter?
I do not care.
I've had that argument. I don't either. The everything has changed so much that I get it. It's not like baseball for our baseball guys out there, where the things, are easier to compare because they don't change as drastically. But the rules have changed so drastically that Dan Marino would have done this. He'd have played 8 more years. If you couldn't tackle Dan Marino and he didn't have to run on those 2 gimp legs of his, and their wide receivers couldn't be touched or whacked in the head, going across the middle. Yeah, Dan Marino Breeze would be going, man, I'm going to have to play 12 more years to break that record. So and there's multiple people already, way ahead of what his, time frames were to get here that are just going to shatter the record anyway. So
yeah, exactly. I mean, because we're going to be talking about this same record getting broken within the next, I would say, 7 to 8 years by Matt Stafford. I mean, with as much volume. I mean, and then past him, Patrick Mahomes, if he continues on his current career arc, he's going to wind up, smashing that in about 10 to 15 years. So, I mean, it's just with the way that the game is played now, volume stats like this, I mean, it just goes to show you that it shouldn't be as not to take anything away from it. I do think it's important, but it just shouldn't be as important as the grand show that we saw on Monday night.
Right. I guess in the argument of football or the NFL, I think they still prize that as one of their top, achievements. So, you know, they want to, you know, they want to show that to them it's important, even though it's not going to be, you know, kept very long. And, you know, and who knows, once it gets hit a certain way, they change rules again, and then it, you know, becomes even harder to hit. Maybe, you know, you don't know.
Sure.
I agree. I don't think it deserved. Do you stop the game, give him the ball, let him walk over, hand it to his coach, go back in the huddle and keep playing? Maybe. I don't know.
I think that's what should have happened. Is as soon as Traquan Smith, you know, ran into the end zone, just hand it over to the guy that was going to take it with the white gloves, that was going to take it straight to Canton, hop back in the huddle, and then let's keep it pushing. But all this other stuff, now, I mean, with the family and all that.
I do believe some of this took place because of New Orleans. You know, the New Orleans, they do have a spot for Breeze.
That's huge. I mean, he is royalty.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. If someone wanted to give me that argument, I would say, all right, I'll buy that. Meaning they did this for the fans that were in that stadium as much as they, or more so than they did it for us watching the game. So
yeah, I remember. I still remember my wife and I. We went down to New Orleans for our 5th anniversary, and when we were there, we were talking with a couple, I think, on the local trolley or whatever, and I remember talking to the husband, and he asked me, it's like, what do you think of Drew Brees? Because, I mean, that guy, I mean, I think he was wearing a Drew Brees jersey. That's why I was sitting there talking to him. But
it's
I mean,
a pretty popular shirt in that area.
Yeah, you do not speak ill of Drew Brees when you're in New Orleans. I mean, you'll wind up, in a bad spot.
Right. So, you know, I mean, again, I get it, but I agree with most people today. I get it, but not caring was pretty easy. This week, the big thing right now, the last day or two, is LaShawn McCoy trade rumors. I know Philadelphia was part of that discussion. I'm trying to think, there was a second team, but for fantasy, and again, I know it always matters, but obviously the couple of teams that to me would need a running back, the same situation. I'm not sure, you know, if McCoy's worth more or less there, or he is in Buffalo. You know, he had his best game so far. Maybe the quarterback there, Allen, right? Josh Allen.
Yep.
You know, if they start doing things, if I had a McCoy, which I don't, I would like him to stay there versus going to a new system, especially if he goes to Philadelphia. To me, he's worth even less. If he goes to San Francisco, and I'm trying to think, there was a third team, Washington, maybe. I forget who else they were talking about.
Possibly, yeah.
So I know that was a pretty big deal. As far as performances this week, what's the deal with Amari Cooper? 1 pass, 10 yards. Was that the defense, or was that just a Gruden problem? Or what's the deal there with Amari Cooper? I know people say he can't catch and he has bad hands. If you're not throwing him the ball but once, it doesn't matter what kind of hands he has. I mean, what's going on there? Is their coach going to be a problem all year? Is it going to take the coach a year or two to get his system in, or a year or two to realize the system isn't going to work? He doesn't have the players. You know, they've been in all the games. They just can't win them. I mean, so unfortunately, if you don't like the coach, that's not a good thing. You'd rather him get blown out. What do you think's going on there in Raider, what, the black hole?
Yeah, I think that's what they called it. Yeah, the black hole. But real quick on the Jay Ajayi thing, one name that I would say is as a rumor, because I know LaShawn McCoy is the big one. But what do you think about Carlos Hyde to the Eagles if they were to trade him, since they already have Nick Chubb waiting and they have Duke Johnson there to pick up on third downs? They could just give Carlos Hyde. I mean, they have the cap space in order to move him, or they also have the picks and the equity to trade him. I mean, it just seems like that would be something that might be, that I think that would be useful on both ends instead of looking at a high priced player.
Well, I guess it would depend what Cleveland gets, because if I'm not mistaken, I think Cleveland still has a pick or two next year that they have from other trades. Yep. So,
because right now, I think I would assume,
and that's that's the next thing I was going to. The Browns, they've won 2 in a row. They keep playing overtime. They're winning, but they're still not scoring a lot. But at the same time, I don't think you mess with it. I mean, they have some momentum. I think, and there is something to say about Hyde being in Ohio, a Buckeye guy. Yeah, I mean, do you mess with it? I mean, maybe you get Chubb in a little more, but
I don't know, because at least with LaShawn McCoy, I know he's going to carry a hefty price tag because he's not in it for the long haul, and I'm sure the Eagles wouldn't see him being in it for the long haul.
Right.
So
but Hyde's only on a 1-year contract, if I recall.
Right, but he's still got some more years of football ahead of him, so they could trade picks in order to pick up Hyde. Like Eagles could give them picks.
Okay.
Where Hyde, where McCoy will want money up front. And the Eagles, they have one of the worst cap situations in the league. I think they're like actually maybe $20 million in the hole as it sits currently. So it's like they don't have the money to really pick up LaShawn McCoy's contract, where if they were to do a deal with the Browns, it'd be easier for them money-wise in order to do a deal for somebody like Carlos Hyde. So that's where it makes some sense from a business standpoint. The talent-wise, yeah, I'm with you 100%. The Browns have a good thing going, minus Hugh Jackson, but with the personnel and everything working the way it is, I think that'd be fine for them to stay pat. But if they were to move Carlos Hyde, I think it'd be worthwhile. I think it's possible.
All right. What about their receiving issue? Did they screw up by getting rid of
Josh Gordon?
Josh Gordon, because now Callaway hasn't really kicked in, and now he's injured. I don't think they've ruled him out, but a lot of things I've seen say he's not going to play. The Higgins, I think, is the other guy. He's somewhat hurt. Did they make a mistake thinking that, because they didn't get a lot for him. So, did they think that these guys were ready, but they aren't? Or, was it just a matter they needed to get, Gordon out of the locker room?
Well, they made a huge mistake. Don't get me wrong, getting rid of Gordon, but if they were trying to bank on those receivers, I don't think that from that standpoint, they made a poor decision. I think they just made a poor decision in terms of what they wanted to do with Josh Gordon.
Right.
The receivers that they have now, whether you're talking about Antonio Callaway or Rashard Higgins from a talent standpoint, yeah, I think they're rookies. They're not Higgins, but Antonio Callaway is, and I think they're progressing. There are going to be some growing pains with it, but I still think that Rashard Higgins, I believe he has a 69% reception rate. So I think that's still pretty high, I think, for a second-year player. So he's performing well. Antonio Callaway, yeah, he's got some big-time drops, but really I don't want to ding wide receivers in terms of for drops. Sure, I know that it's something that we see it, we think that player sucks, and we just connect that negative moment with the receiver. Right. But I don't think that that's something that going forward, I think he'll still be given opportunities. It's not like Mayfield is not going to go back to him. He's still gonna rely on him because they don't have anybody else that can really perform or do the things that Antonio Callaway can do, which is get deep or even work the intermediate levels of the field, like with Jarvis Landry. So I think moving forward, I think it's just something that you're going to have to wait and see, let these players develop. They're only first and second year players, so let them develop.
And, my issue with them is now that they have these 2 wins and a tie, right? So two wins and a tie. What would have to happen now for their coach to get fired? Or is he probably in now?
He's in now. Unless... which is somewhat bothersome, but at the same time, it's
that conversation. I still don't think he's as bad as we all think. The organization has had trouble for a couple of years. The organization has not done a lot to help him until this year. And part of that was because they did so much shitty stuff years ago that no one wanted to come here. Hey, if anything, it's the same thing with what Marvin Lewis did here. We could not get anybody to even look at coming to Cincinnati. Didn't matter how much money we were willing to give them, until Marvin got here. And even Marvin had to fight that for a few years where people were saying, oh, here we go again. But, and especially me, and I think other people saw, well, they're not winning yet, but they're getting players, something they didn't do in the past. And that is something Cleveland's now getting. They're getting players. Players want to play with this group of people. So, I think that's a big thing.
I don't know. With Hugh, it just seems like he doesn't have the talent to be a head coach. I think as an offensive coordinator,
it's not been proven yet. I know he hasn't won a lot yet, but
I don't know. Did you see him at the end of that game after the game-winning field goal? The game was over, and he's holding up two fingers to signal the fact that they're going to go for 2-point conversion, but the game was already over.
All
so
right.
what's going to be no?
Some people have said that, and other people have said he holding up the two to say their second win. So I've heard both. I get what you're saying, but I'm sorry. Belichick struggled the first two places he coached, and he also struggled for a few years with New England. So you don't know. I mean, people had these exact same comments, about him. Even when the Patriots signed him after losing record with the Jets and the Browns. So
true.
That's my point. We don't know yet, and I do agree that if the Browns fire him, he isn't probably going to head coach somewhere else.
No, just do what you're good at. Stay in your lane. He was a hell of an offensive coordinator for Cincinnati. Agree. He was a hell of an offensive coordinator when he was in Oakland prior to that.
And USC. He was the offensive coordinator for USC when they won their championship. So
he's a good coordinator. Just some people aren't meant to be at the head coach level. That's not a knock to him as a coach in general. It's just maybe that's just doesn't fit what he's suited for. That's all.
Right. And maybe. Or at least he could, as a head coach, which and that's still up in the air. He did surround himself now with a good defensive and offensive coordinator. Most people think these two guys are going to be head coaches somewhere. Was that him or the front office? Obviously now he could concentrate on what he wants or can do because he has those guys there. So we'll see. I just think, hey, and I'm no Browns fan. I just think we need to let it play out. So the next thing is if you stream kickers, and someone said, hey, you can stream a kicker this week that's going to have 5 opportunities and 2 extra point opportunities. You definitely want him on your team. You got to pick him up. The problem is he only made one of all those.
Mason Crosby.
What do you think? I know I hear all these people, we have this discussion all the time. I believe in the kickers and the defenses in fantasy. I think that's part of the game. I think it makes the game a little more enjoyable. Some people say too much luck. I think it does add a little bit of, the word isn't luck, because to me, when people say I got beat from my kicker this week, I always say bullshit. Let me see your roster. Meaning, I don't believe it. I believe maybe the kicker didn't, you might have lost by 2 and the kicker was -2. I get that. But you also might have had a number 1 pick running back that got you 12 points and should have been getting you 20. So,
it's not because of one person. That kicker, if he got you, if they do negative scoring for the league, that -2 or -4, depending on how you do your kicker scoring, that might stand out a bit more. Right. But if your top players are, I had him.
I was -7 points at one point. Now the good thing is I was really winning, so it didn't matter. Mm-hmm. And then he kicked that last field goal was worth 4 points, so he ended up -3 for me. So I had him, and actually I still won by like 40 because everyone else went off, but I had -3 out of him and 1 point out of Doug Baldwin. So between those two spots, I was -2, and I still pulled out a victory. So it made it a little bit fun there. Hold on. Someone wants to ask a question. Got a question from Andrea about RB pickups. Are you in the chat room? Can you see what she's looking at out there? Mm-hmm. The first thing I see is on that list is Alfred Blue. If Miller's playing, that maybe not, but at the same time, I'm not sure they've said for sure.
If Miller has said himself he's playing.
He has, but the team hasn't. And I'm not sure they weren't headed towards Alfred Blue before the injury.
Right. Regardless, they are playing against Buffalo. They have held opposing running backs to fairly low yardage.
Right.
So I wouldn't really count all too much on Houston. Houston also has a poor offensive line. And while I think Alfred Blue played well this past week against who they play, Dallas? Yes, Dallas. Yeah, they played Dallas. While I looked fine there, I don't expect a repeat performance. This is the once a year we get this crazy game out of Alfred Blue. I think it's almost like in his contract that he gets like 20 touches and he gets like between 10 and 15 PPR points.
In the chat room, I would ask Andrea, is this a pickup for 1 week or a pickup for the rest of the season? Because, again, I don't see that name on here. It's back to, the Foreman, I still think if Foreman was on this list and you don't need to start him right away, I'd pick him up out of this list. So that would be a person I would look for, and that's the IR running back with Houston, because they're saying he's practicing now like 100%. They're going to the bye, I think, next week, if I'm not mistaken, and then he'll be back in week 7. I think he's actually eligible next week, but I think they have their bye. I could be wrong. Yeah. Other than that, the other names on this list, again,
I like Mike Davis here. I do like Mike Davis here.
Mike Davis would be a playable option if it was for this week. Him or Blue would be my pickup for this week. And obviously, if your other running back is Zeke Elliott, I've already picked up Rod Smith in my league. I have that. Rod Smith, the few times they give him the ball, again, is it going to be Zeke Elliott? I don't know, but I think he'll be good enough to help you if you lose a top running back like that. So,
actually, to be quite honest with you, so looking at this, I guess I'll take 3 off the list. I would go Mike Davis, Ito Smith, and then Alfred Blue in that order for a pickup, if it was just for this week, because Devonta Freeman apparently has a bone contusion and he didn't practice today. So I'm not sure if he's actually going to play this week.
Right.
So Ito Smith would be at least a pretty decent option if it's for a 1-week pickup, because we don't know how long Freeman is going to be out, if it's just going to be for this week or for
I don't know. I mean, a foot injury, okay, and I'll mark that off because it's a foot injury from a running back that already had other issues. So it's really hard to say. So in the chat room now, she's given a little more information. Now she's switched to a
play Carson over. Yeah.
I own Rex Burkhead. He's hurt. I don't even know if he's any good. She has Chris Carson for now. And so it does look like she probably needs somebody. She has Mark Walton, which he's the backup there for the Buckeyes. He's the Bengals. So I would agree. It looks like she's trying, she probably needs to pick up somebody that she could even play this week. And to me, Mike Davis would probably be that person.
But if she has Chris Carson, I would play Chris Carson over all of those guys.
Oh, definitely. I'm assuming, would you play Carson over both of those guys? Yes.
Yep. Yeah, I would play Carson over those guys. Playing against Oakland, slowest defense in the league.
Right.
I would most definitely play Chris Carson. And they're playing the London game. Seattle has a 25.5 implied team total, if I'm not mistaken. And if I'm not mistaken as well, it is their highest team total that they've been projected for this season so far. So I would say that, go ahead and I'd play Chris Carson over that.
Right. There you go, Andrea. And I think she then had a
I didn't see a trade. Oh, the trade question for what type of RB can I get for Brady or Mahomes? For Mahomes, ask for the world.
You can ask for the world. In good leagues, you're not going to get it because they know quarterbacks aren't worth a lot. Okay.
I don't know.
Well, you don't know. Yes, you do. You would not take Mahomes for Zeke Elliott. You wouldn't take Mahomes for, David Johnson. Maybe if the David Johnson owner has another backup or a couple other running backs and has no quarterback, maybe because you could get points there to make up for your running back errors. And I was in the league, and the one where I drafted the 3 quarterbacks auction. Remember, I paid a little extra because I was trying to bump it up. Mahomes was one of mine. I had Brady, Mahomes, and Rivers. I couldn't get anybody to trade anything. I finally was able to trade Mahomes. And now it worked out this week. I got Drake. That was the best I could get. Now I know, I paid $3 for Mahomes. He paid $12 for Drake. So, as far as draft day value, I got my money back, but that was the best running, and I'm running back week. I had to find something, and that was the only deal I could work out of those 3 quarterbacks, because there was even a couple quarterbacks. Most of the people in this league are smart enough to only have 1 quarterback. I was stupid and bid up 2 and got stuck with 3, but it's hard. So my point would be, you put out some offers, Andrew. Obviously the key there is, you're looking for someone who has the extra running backs. That's hard right now. because of all the injuries. And then obviously now you're looking obviously for somebody who has quarterback problems. And that's obviously an issue. What I would be looking for would be the 0-4, 0-5, 1-4, 1-4, type teams where their quarterback is on bye, or something like that. And they need a Mahomes to maybe pull something out. You might get a hair better guy at that point, or
it doesn't even have to be the 1-4, 0-5 team. You can look for the team that's been kind of skirting by with Carson Wentz.
That's true.
Andrew Luck, even the guy that streamed Blake Bortles last week and kind of got by on some, that's been streaming, and he might want a more stable option.
Right.
So you have to look at their QB situation and then say, or hell, in a couple of my leagues where I had Andy Dalton,
right.
I wouldn't mind.
Now, and Cub typed it in there that target Kamara or Hunt. I'm sorry. I don't know. I couldn't fathom that. That doesn't mean it doesn't happen, especially maybe if you get a Kamara guy or you build maybe to me, this is one where you build a couple of people in, a trade. Maybe the Kamara guy is worried that Ingram's back now and it's going to be like that. I've been the opposite. I've sent out some trades for Kamara now, hoping maybe the guy thinks that and I could get him at a lower value, but again, I play in pretty competitive leagues. No one's biting. You throw it out there, and then unfortunately, you can't do too much because then you have to run the risk of what if he really does get stuck doing the.
I'll ride that ship. Because I'll bet on talent all day long. Kamara's talented, so I agree. Even if that team does revert back to,
but you're not going to get the first 4 weeks of value out of him. Meaning, if someone wants to trade him, people are thinking, well, yeah, I got to trade him for someone that's going to get me 40 points a week because that's what he's getting me. Well, I don't think he's going to get that either.
No, I don't think you shouldn't expect that.
Right.
You should expect somewhere between 15 to 20. Somewhere in there. I think that's definitely viable with 8 to 10 rushes with 6 to 7 targets per week. I think that is well within the range of outcomes for Kamara on a weekly basis.
Right.
So if you can expect high-end production based off of those touches because his efficiency is through the roof, then he should be posting RB1. Legitimate RB1 numbers, not like video game RB1 numbers where he's getting 30 or 40.
If the people you just posted, if that's your starters, I have no problem with starting Michelle and Cook. I'm sorry. I realize Delvin Cook, if he's injured, may not play this week. But again, I still think Delvin Cook's going to come around, in the next week or two. So to me, to say her running backs are horrible, I would say 1 week of Sony Michel. Even though he's been bad up to last week, I think last week's more what we're going to see than the first 3 weeks. Delvin Cook, again, like you just said, talent. The key is he healthy? So, and then she has Kieran Johnson on her bench and Chubb. I don't think she's.
No, that's not her team. That's the guy's team that she wants to try and trade for.
Oh, okay. Then I missed.
She wants to try and sell the QB to the guy that has Jimmy Garoppolo and Derek Carr.
Same thing. See, I think.
I would grab Michelle. Just try and grab his best running back.
If that was my team, though, I wouldn't take that trade. I'd be more likely to trade Delvin Cook for Mahomes or even Kerryon Johnson, and that's probably what I would come. If you offered me Mahomes for Sony Michel or Cook, I would come back and say I'll give you Kerry Johnson, and I'd see if she takes that. And personally, if that I might counter back again, and then if not, then maybe I'd go back and then say I'll take Kerryon Johnson.
I'm a greedy sucker, so I would actually try and get both Sony Michel because I don't think Mahomes or Tom Brady for Sony Michel straight up is actually really worth it to me. I would say Sony Michel.
Okay, now it's not worth it to you unless it's your team and you really, we didn't see Andrea's team then. Sure. I don't know how desperate she is, and I don't know what other quarterback she has.
She said she just wanted a running back, though. So I can just assume that she would run a running back.
Okay, but she has to replace that quarterback with somebody.
She said she also has Tom Brady.
Okay, that's right. All right. So she's going to be starting Tom, which the good thing is Tom, I don't think has a bye till week 11 or something like that. So you'll be able to ride him. I don't know. There's no way if that was my team that she's showing, am I giving you the best I would give you for Mahomes at this point, especially because Derek Carr right now is, he's getting as many fantasy points as Tom Brady. And I'd rather have those running backs in my lineup and roll with Carr than Mahomes. But that's what's hard about quarterbacks, when trading them. But
right now, looking at that team, man, I think long and hard about that offer if you want to try and trade it around. But again, I'd be greedy. I'd ask for Sony
There's
Michel.
nothing wrong with asking for high. I'm just telling you, if you offered it to me, I'm not taking it. That's all. I mean, I can only be honest with you.
So you're going to go down with this ship where you got like 2 dudes on IR and 4 Qs sitting on your team. You're going to go down with that ship?
You mean, are we talking the team she's showing us right now?
Yeah, the one that
I said I'm keeping Sony Michel. I think's that guy's best running back. I think Sony Michel is set now, so I would not trade Sony Michel for Mahomes. Delvin Cook would be a maybe trade. Kerryon Johnson would be a for sure. That's my point. I get what you're saying, and I would tell her offer for Sony Michel first and see if he counters back with Kerryon Johnson or if my point is if she needs running back bad enough, I'd rather have Kerryon Johnson than Tom Brady or Mahomes. And to be honest, I would probably I would offer Brady for Michelle or Cook. And if he didn't take that, I would come back and then say, how about Brady for Kerryon Johnson? I'd rather give up Brady for Johnson and keep Holmes. So, I think that would matter. So, the key is, like I said, unfortunately in some of these leagues, Andrea, it's just getting anybody to trade anything, because everyone thinks they're getting screwed regardless if they make their team better or not. We've talked about that before in other shows. So, and now I see, now she's showing her team. So she has, Royce Freeman, Chris Carson, Mark. Oh, so is this a starting lineup? Do you start three running backs? Shit. If you start 3 running backs, then you definitely have to do something. So, if that's the starters,
and that guy's 0-4, take him for all he's worth.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I definitely would make those offers. I mean, and like I said,
Sony Michel.
Yeah,
I don't want Kerryon Johnson right now. I think he has the talent, but the situation doesn't lend itself towards something I want to try and buy.
I don't argue. I'm not going to argue with that. But if that's the only trade she can make happen, I'd rather have Kerryon Johnson to mix in with Royce Freeman and Carson, meaning, okay, I can do some stuff at least, versus having Tom Brady and Mahomes. I mean, the problem is it's a 1 quarterback league. You can't, you're going to lose if you keep both of them regardless. I'll be honest, in 2 weeks, if I was desperate, I'd take Giovanni Bernard for Tom Brady if I could make nothing else happen, meaning, that's the point. Sometimes you have to do desperate things in fantasy, which means you lost the trade, but you got to do something. So, well, good luck there, Andrea. I hope we helped, even though me and Chris kind of disagreed. And I'm not disagreeing. I'm just telling you that's not a trade I would accept if I was that guy. I would try to play. I mean, because I would look at her roster and go, she really does need a running back. I bet I can get. I think I can get a quarterback and give her Kerryon Johnson if she.
Well, sure, and that's where the negotiations start. But you should. Sure. But she at this point she has the leverage. So I would start with trying to knock out.
We'd argue that. I think they're both in trouble. He needs a quarterback and she needs a running back. I mean, they both are in trouble. So, and that's actually the other thing. Now and you also got to recall, Mark Davis is on the free waiver. She don't have to give up anything for him, and you're right. He might be just as good as Kerryon Johnson, maybe, depending on what they do in Seattle. Who knows?
Right.
So,
but you need the situation to break right for Johnson, where Sony Michel, I mean, he's going to be there. Well, he's not the starting running back. James White's the starting running back.
And I didn't notice, what's her record? I mean, that would also be a factor to me. Can I afford another week or two? Which is back to if Foreman is still out there on IR and I could pick him up and not have to drop much, I still think in a couple of weeks, Foreman's going to be the starting running back for Houston. So, Andrea, what's your record right now? Because to me, I always take that into factor also. I mean, do I have to win this week? Then you got to do something. If you're 1-4, 0-5, you got to do anything. So that would be a key. If you're 2-3 or 3-2, I don't know. You might be able to wait one more week if 6 teams get in the playoffs. She's 2-3. At 2-3, I don't think she's as desperate this week.
Yeah, and she can get by on this week. That's what I'm saying. She's got the leverage.
Yeah, and Foreman comes back. So, you're not as desperate as you probably think. And obviously there's other teams out there, keep watching. And my thing is sometimes when trades don't happen and you have the ability to wait one more week, and hopefully it's not your team, but one injury on another team can open up a whole different realm of possibilities than what you had this week, Yeah,
that's why you start the communication now. But my
point is, it could even be with a different team. One injury and your trade options can open wide up. So,
right.
It's just like baseball, Andrea. I know I shouldn't say that. We had that conversation last night on the Chris. I know you have not participated in my roundtable show, and it's only lasting 3 hours a night. So it's not,
I don't know why I can't do those things. I have nothing else going on Tuesdays.
But I tell you, you're more than happy to pop in and pop out. I've had a couple people just come in for the one topic and then they leave.
I came into the chat on Sunday morning. I was there for the last couple of minutes on Sunday.
Oh, okay, me and Lou's show.
Yeah, for the start sit or whatever before lunch. I was there on Sunday.
Okay, well, good. We just got to get you on the show, especially this week. I don't know how the weather's going to affect anything this week with the hurricane coming up through there.
The only one that seems to be affected right now is going to be the Miami game because Jacksonville is playing Dallas in Dallas.
Okay.
Tampa Bay is playing in Atlanta in a dome.
Okay.
Those two teams are covered. It's just Miami is playing at home against – who are they playing against? It's somebody that's coming off a bye. Chicago. Yeah, Miami's playing Chicago in Miami. So there's a chance for rain to impact that game.
All right.
But we don't know at this point.
Sounds good for my Bears defense. Sounds like a game where they might get a couple sacks and an interception or something, or maybe a fumble recovery. And now I don't even know. I know the storm was supposed to hit close to Saturday or Sunday. Maybe by then it'll be through Atlanta. My concern with Atlanta was it's so bad that they move the game or change a time or something like that. But
I don't know where they're going to move it to since it's Atlanta and Tampa Bay. So where are they going to move it to?
Okay, you're right. All right. So you're stuck there.
I guess they could move it to...
They can move it to a Monday night. I've seen that before where they had two Monday night games.
Yeah, they could flex it. But I think
especially when they're that close together, where there's not much travel. So, all right.
Yeah. All I know is they can't cancel the game since Tampa Bay has already had their bye week and Atlanta hasn't, so it can't be canceled.
I got you. And you brought it up. I am pissed. I was all excited about hearing the London game, so I thought we were going to have a game at 9:00 in the morning. I'm pissed. I love the 9:00 games. It just it alleviates all the pressure. You just wake up. Football starts within an hour. You make your lineups and you start watching football at 9 a.m. In California, 6 a.m. and then you watch it till midnight. I love it. I know some people don't because they don't have that much time in a day, but I do. I enjoy when those games are on at 9 and not 1. I think the following week we do have the 9:00 game. So, the London games, and we'll talk about that next Wednesday. You'll need to set your lineups a little bit early not this week, the following Sunday, because I'm pretty sure there's a 9:00 game that week. So I know that's always a big thing. All right. Again, we had so much to talk about. That's why we didn't do much sports talk at the beginning. Just a real quick do's and don'ts, and we'll go over the main topic today. We just wanted to touch a few minutes on, just scoring, how much scoring is up this year compared to even just last year. So we'll get into that in a few minutes, but I'll let you go. I think I started last time. Do you have a do or a don't for week 5 of your fantasy season?
For week 5, a do, or I guess we're getting to week 6 technically. A do.
Technically, you're right.
Yeah. You should be out there if you haven't already, but a do is to start sending those trade offers out if you haven't already. Really start to trim your lineup and understand kind of where you're weak and start looking at the playoffs. We're not all too far out from the playoff picture being, a little bit clearer. So if you think that you're in contention, even if you're sitting at 3-2, 2-3, try and make those trades right now and see if you can hit on some of those lottery ticket players,
right,
like Kerryon Johnson that we just talked about. So while he might not have much value now, if you're thinking that the talent is still there and players like LeGarrette Blount and Theo Riddick are just going to be role players like down the stretch, then go trade for them now. Right. And give up some of those players that, if you want to try and sell a Lamar Miller that might be getting touches now, but you don't think is going to have a ton of value down the stretch, or some of those like Chris Hogan, if we don't know what his value is going to be like.
Well, you're better off trading him now, even for a little lower value, than no value in 2 weeks.
Exactly. So where like some people might want to hold on to Kerryon Johnson since he has gotten into the end zone, but you might be able to persuade some people to get out there because they don't understand his workload, and then you can bank on that talent being there for you down the stretch. So start making those offers now.
Right. And I'll add, and I guess I'll change my do because I'll just add on to yours. When you are doing trades this time of year, realize the other do is pay attention to the players who have already had a bye. The value really bumps a few of these players up that have already, where now you can plug them in. I traded this week already for Trey Burton because the guy, already had another tight end, blah, blah, blah. Well, Trey Burton, which I think is going to be a decent tight end, hopefully the rest of the season anyway, I was streaming in that league, and now hopefully I have somebody I can just set and go. He has no buy. He's got a little more value. Maybe there's quarterbacks out there now. If you're doing some moves that maybe, you can, you give a quarterback, maybe your quarterback's not on by this week, but he's on by next week. Start working that now. And maybe you trade somebody that's not paying attention to the bye weeks, and you maybe get a Winston, or I'm trying to think, we have Winston, Breeze will be next week. Washington, they've had their bye. I don't think too many people
Breeze is this coming week.
Well, that's what I'm saying. But my point would be in the next couple of weeks. Don't be afraid to make what might not, a trade that helps you because you're getting rid of somebody who's got a bye in week 9 or week 8, and you're trading for someone who just had their bye. Washington, again, the Bears, they don't really have a quarterback, but again, I got Trey Burton there. I'm just saying there's players there, and the Bears running backs right now, both are kind of a weird situation where you might be able to pick up with a low ball offer, maybe where people aren't happy with them, but they're they're definitely two running backs that have some value and a little more value now that they have had their bye weeks, meaning now you have them for your bye weeks and you can plug them in and that. So that would be my do also, just to tack on to the trades. And my other do was this time of year is the 6-week IR thing is popping off on a lot of players. Before you drop or pick up people, if your IR spot is empty and you're going to drop somebody for somebody else, before you do that, drop them and pick up the IR guy, get the IR guy, move him to your IR spot, then pick up the guy you wanted to pick up. At least on most leagues, you have to do it that way. You can't move him from the free agent right to the waiver or right to IR. So if this is the time of year, if your IR spot isn't got somebody in it, I personally would say you're not maybe doing it right. I agree. Yeah. There's enough players out there right now that may or may not, and that's the point. And even if it's somebody you're taking a big chance on that might not come back for 4 weeks from now, Sproles would be one. There's a chance he plays this week, but I know right now on ESPN he's still IR eligible. So if I was gonna, rather than just leave the spot open, I'd put Sproles down there and pick up. If I was going to make a move anyway.
Oh, he's IR eligible on ESPN. He's listed as doubtful on Yahoo.
I'm almost positive this morning when I looked, he was still IR eligible. Because I don't think they had named him yet today. Now, if they named him today as the probable, then maybe he's not. So, gotcha. I know Greg Olson is one that I picked up a week ago and put him in an IR spot. Now he's going to be back this week or next week. So that's my do. Look and see who's IR eligible. And look for somebody who might come back in the next week or two. And again, Foreman from Houston. Yep. There's a couple of them. I think Hooper, the tight end. I think Austin, is he an IR?
No.
There's another one. No, but there's another tight end that was having a good season. It was on IR for a couple of weeks. I'm trying to think who it was.
Tight end that was on IR a couple of weeks.
Who's with Tampa Bay?
OJ Howard.
Howard is IR eligible. So if I'm streaming tight ends and my IR spot is empty, I'm picking him up right now. So
that's worthwhile. Yeah.
So that would be mine. What about a do? What about a don't? What don't you want to do right now going into week 6?
I don't, and I think I've heard this. I think I've said this one before, but I'm going to reiterate it because now that if we're talking trades, trades equate to understanding player value. And so I think this kind of goes with it, even though I've said this before. Don't hold on to your preseason rankings, ADP values, or the draft rankings and draft ADPs. What you purchase those players for does not reflect what they're worth now, other than Todd Gurley. I think he's pretty much the only one. Maybe Antonio Brown. The first round players, sure.
Right.
I mean, but pretty much everybody else, if you paid a third, fourth round pick for them, most likely they ain't worth a third or fourth round pick for them right now. So you need to assess them based off of the actual production that they've done on the field in order to go forward and say that this is how much the player should be worth going forward. Because I put out some trades for trying to sell Tyler Lockett. Now, Tyler Lockett, everybody drafted him, double-digit rounds? Something like that.
Right. But now he has much more value than that.
He has more value than people that you drafted in the 5th, 6th, 7th round. So when I'm offering those trades and the offer comes back and he says, what do I want this flex wide receiver for?
Right.
Like, what am I supposed to do with this flex receiver? And I'm like, well, hold on a minute. How many points has Tyler Lockett put up in the season so far? And how many points has the wide receiver them try to trade for put up? Okay, so now can we actually talk about what's been put out on the field instead of looking at what we've drafted?
Some people still don't do it that way, but I agree.
No. And they hold on to those throughout the entire season. It's like that's the price tag that they're supposed to stick with for 13.
They lose with all their picks still on their team.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. I get it. They
don't want to hold on because they assume that value is static and it changes week to week.
All right. My don't is, and this is definitely for home leagues and newer players, don't just cut your bye week players because it's their bye week. I mean, I see this every year in home leagues where people that should never get cut because it's their bye week, and the guy just doesn't know. And sometimes you talk and they go, well, I'll get him next week. I'll pick him back up. They don't realize, well, no, you cut a guy who should have never been cut. I'll have him next week. You know what I'm saying? So, people, pay it. It's hard to tell somebody because that person's not listening to us. But, people, when it's your bye week, and I'll even say, depending on your record, I'm never a person to leave a zero out there, but you can't drop a second or third round pick or a second or third, like a Lockett. I know there's people out there in home leagues that would drop a Lockett because it's his bye week, not this week, but you know what I'm saying, and say, well, it was his bye week. I had to drop him so I could pick up Paul Richardson. No, you didn't. At some point, if you have a good enough record, just, leave the zero there if you have no other options. Now, me and you both know there's other ways. There's options.
Oh, yes.
But
there's always one.
I see it every year in home leagues where, you'll just see which is back to another do, obviously, is always check, your league your league movements in the morning.
Transactions. I love scouting transactions.
And again, every once in a while you just go, did I just read that right? Did he get, and then you have to look, did he get cut or added? Because I'm like, I can't believe that guy just cut that guy.
Yeah.
Baltimore
defense got dropped today in one of my leagues because they didn't perform well against Cleveland.
Right. Well,
it's like, what are you doing?
We had someone last week in our home league. This guy, now he's a newer player, but this is his second year. He dropped Chris Thompson. I mean, this is a real life scenario. I mean, he cut Chris Thompson because it was his bye week and he had to make some moves. It was just make a trade offer, even if you have to lowball. That's better than dropping him.
Get something.
Come on. Yeah. Now I was pissed. I didn't have the waiver wire. I got picked up on him, and what was odd is the guy dropped him on a Saturday, and because it was their bye week, he was pick-upable. How's that for a word? He was actually eligible on Monday morning because they had a bye week, meaning Monday morning the waivers ran, and I thought, you know what? So I did put in a waiver motion to get him because I thought, you know what? I'm waiver 4. And I happened to have, and here's what it was. I was winning pretty big. I had a kicker that was kicking that night. So I'm like, I will drop my kicker, and pick up Chris Thompson. Yep. And those are the kind of things you got to look at. There again, another nice thing about having a Monday night kicker or defense, if you're already blowing somebody's ass out, you could, you have some options on a Monday. So, but no, somebody else also had a few options, and the guy ahead of me picked him up. I was like, back to my thing. Don't just drop somebody because it's their bye week thinking, well, I'll just pick him back up. It doesn't work that way. So, all right, that's our do's and don'ts. Chris, let's just quick. The stat I heard, scoring in the NFL is there's they're averaging each team. If I read this right, each team is averaging 30 more yards than they were last year, and last year was up compared to any other year. So each team is averaging 30 more yards a game, which doesn't seem like a lot, but that's the biggest increase that we've had. And each team is averaging 3 more points per game. And that's including some games, obviously, where the score was 6-9. Right. So, we're averaging 3 more points per team per game and 30 more yards of offense. Those are both big numbers for fantasy. So that was my question is this the rules? Is it the officiating? Is it the offensive coordinators now taking advantage of the new systems? What do you think is the cause of, the scoring jumping this much?
It's all of it. I would say that at the beginning of the season, I was more apt to say that it was because of the rules change, because with the way that the refs were enforcing the quarterback hits and whatnot, drives were being extended, yards were being extended, and that led to more points. So the 30-plus point performances that you saw from quarterbacks in weeks like 3, 4, and 5, and even a 40-pointer from a couple like in weeks 4 and 5, I would say a lot of that had to do with the way that the rules are being enforced by the refs, but also you could see that a lot of coaches now, we have more forward-thinking coaches in the leagues. It's not just Sean McVay that's pushing the bounds in terms of, and also Bill Belichick in terms of what you can do with an offense. Frank Reich, who comes from the Philadelphia Eagles organization, he's now in Indianapolis, and despite the fact that Andrew Luck has pretty much, nobody around him to really pass to of note. And the offensive line is, I would say it's fairly decent. They're still putting up points and they're still extending drives because they know how to work their offense. The same thing with Doug Peterson and the Eagles. Despite the fact that the Eagles right now are sitting at 2-3, if I'm not mistaken, they're still able to sustain drives and at least put up some points or put up a number of offensive yards because, again, they know how to work their defense. Their offensive system works for the players that they have. And also the same thing with Matt LaFleur and Mike Vrabel down in Tennessee. Same thing where we saw Corey Davis blow up for 170 yards and a touchdown when they played against the Eagles in Week 4. Because you have these forward-thinking coaches that are now kind of taking over the league. Oh, and then what about Todd Monken, the offensive coach down in Tampa Bay, where we saw the resurgence of Fitzmagic for the first 3 weeks of the season. So now if you have these forward-thinking coaches that know how to harness the personnel on their team, coupled with the rules and the refs not being able to enforce the new rule changes correctly, this is what you get. You get the perfect storm of these high-scoring games, fantasy players seeing these video game numbers being put up so they have 150 point games, and everybody loves it. Ratings are up. It's fun to watch when you see these things happen. Right,
which is back to, I think, if I'm not mistaken, last week. Now, it didn't happen. What did the Pittsburgh-Atlanta game, I think they said was the highest total game Vegas had ever had. I want to say 58.5 or something like that. Or 59.5. So that was, they were saying will we have a 61 or a 60.5? Will there be a Vegas total over 60 points this year? And a couple experts and gamblers, they think there will be before we're done. So
it wouldn't surprise me because I think Tampa Bay ATL, I think it opened at 57. I think it jumped up to not jumped up, but it rose to 57.5, depending on which bookie that you use. It might be at 58 now. So depending on how the week shakes out, let me I can pull it up right now and just see where it's at. Tampa Bay, Atlanta, I'm seeing it at 57.5. It's still sitting at 57.5, but I can see a 60-point projected game coming soon. And every single person is going to be stacking that game with respect to DFS and betting lines and whatnot, because that's just something that everybody's going to be paying attention to. It'd have to be if Pittsburgh and Tampa Bay played each other again, later on in the season, once all the offenses got a chance to figure themselves out and the defenses were still pretty terrible, it'd have to be some two high-powered offenses with shoddy defenses that would have to do that.
Right.
But I can see it happening.
Right. And for fantasy, it just, it's just amazing. I mean, again, it used to be if you had a quarterback in the whole season score 55 points, it was like, you remember that one week when we got 55 points from, Tom Brady? And now it's like every week, if your quarterback isn't in the 30s, he sucked.
You need these huge performances.
And you have 2 or 3 guys that are hitting. I was winning in a league by 52 going into Monday night. I was done, and he had just Drew Brees. Towards the end, I was sweating it. I mean, especially when they were going like, "Oh, I'm pretty sure they're going to let him get that 500th." I'm like, bullshit. It really, now again, I still end up winning. I mean, he didn't end up getting close. Even another touchdown pass, even a long one would only been about 10 points. And I think I won by like 14. But I'm just saying it, in the past, you were packing it up. You're like, man, I'm up 50. Yeah. I'm up 50 with a quarterback. I'm good. And now, Jeezy peasy. You look at anything and you're like, nothing right now is, game. I've lost twice already this year on Monday nights because big ass, Ben Roethlisberger, I think, had a big night one Monday night, if I'm not mistaken, or something. And, and not only that, I think the guy had Ben and Juju. So, same thing. And, you go from being up 60 to losing by 12. It's like, So, do you see football doing anything about it, or do you think they like it?
I think they'll probably wind up doing something about it. There's going to be a course correction at some point. We've called the NFL the no fun league for a reason. And I think they'll probably wind up reinstituting some rules that will kind of tamper down on the level of egregiousness when it comes to the quarterback hits in order to kind of keep everything the way it was somewhat beforehand. Right. And so I think that there's a course correction. Now, whether it happens this year or if they wait until after a full season of the rule being the way it is in order to say that, we need to make some changes. But I don't know how long it'll be before they make that change. But for right now, let's do it. I mean, let's have some fun.
Right. I agree. I mean, and it is fun if it's your team and you win. I mean, that's the problem. Exactly. It's not fun when you get beat because 2 people on the other guy's team. I'll look at scores and I'm like, oh man, I got a pretty good shot. I mean, this is a good game, but he's got 2 guys that only scored 6, and the other guy only scored 4, and you're like, oh, I definitely got him. But then later in the day, you look and he goes, but he's got 3 guys that scored 47. I mean, it's like, so it's frustrating at the same time as it's entertaining. I mean, when it's the Bengals, you want them to score 50. When we're playing against the other people, we don't want it. So it makes it fun. But I think it's the rules. You can't touch the wide receivers at all. You can't tackle them in the middle of the field. There's no intimidation as a defense anymore. You can't land on a quarterback when you tackle. If you go by the quarterback and just glance his helmet, you're done. That's 15 yards. That to me, if anything, I'd like to see some of that change. Meaning, make it some kind of a penalty where the team doesn't earn a first down for something stupid. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. I don't know the answer, but you understand what I'm saying? Meaning, I get it. Let's build the safety in, and let's put a penalty in place. And maybe it's that guy. Maybe it's just that guy has to sit out a quarter. Maybe that's how you penalize them. I just don't like now that we have offenses that are getting yards or points because of a stupid defensive play or a questionable, call on a quarterback sack or quarterback was, something done to him. You know what I'm saying? I mean, technically the offense didn't earn any of that, but they had 2 penalties that got them 30 yards, and then they throw a 12-yard pass for a touchdown, that they should have never got. So that would be my thing maybe is, if it's targeting or you want to do something kind of like college, look at the review and go, yeah, that looked pretty legit. All right. Number 48, you're out for a quarter, and make that the penalty versus, because that's my point. The defense did their job. they needed a sack right then to stop them on third down. They did their job, but then there's a 15-yard penalty that gives them the first down. The offense did not earn that movement. In fact, you know what I'm saying? They did not earn the advancement of that ball on and off, by the offense, So I would like to see him maybe add a different way to penalize some of these things, to where the offense doesn't benefit because they failed. That's kind of what it is to me. The offense failed, but they still get the first down. So, because if they'd have been blocking, the guy would have never been back there to glance by his helmet. You know what I'm saying? I mean, the whole thing.
Yeah. I'm with you.
And it's even now you hear coaches now on this kickoff stuff where they're kicking it to the 5 because they know the odds are the other team's going to block in the back, and it's going to get, even if they have a long run, the odds are still in their favor now. It used to be you wanted it just out on the 20 and then the 25. Now, no, they want to drop it in the 5 because there's so many flags on kickoff returns now that they're playing the odds that you're going to, even if the guy runs it out 35 yards, then the flag comes out and they, take it back to the 15, half the distance of the goal, and they're starting at the 7, So, all right. I just wanted to bring that up. Scoring in the NFL, how it's affecting fantasy. And obviously it's, what? I think if anything, and I know Andrew was talking running backs tonight, if anything this year, if you get by with okay running backs, but you have, 3 decent wide receivers and a decent quarterback, you can score a lot of points because there's no penalties on those guys. It's definitely that's where the scoring is up the most. The running backs that are getting all the scoring are running backs that are catching the ball, or they're getting the ball on the 3 and running it in. There's not a lot of running back scoring for what we would call a normal running back, right now, meaning the guy who just gets the ball handed off to him, between the hash marks isn't doing anything. It's the running backs that are catching the ball or the running back who's getting the ball on the 5. So, back to the same thing. This was definitely a good year to go running back, zero running back philosophy. So, all right, Chris, had a good time. Good luck this week. You're welcome to the Sunday sit start show with me and Lou Landers. That's on at noon Eastern time for about 35 minutes. You pop into the chat room if you have a question or anything, or like I said, Chris, you're welcome to actually be on the show. I send you the link. So, anybody wants to come there, you can send me a direct message ahead of time. I'm Easy Kill at afantasyfan. Chris, if they want to send you a question, where you at?
You can find me on Twitter at Chris Allen FFWX.
All right. We had a ball, had fun. Again, Chris, good luck with your fantasy, this week. I hope I don't think we're playing each other in our league. I think we already did that. I think we did that like week 2 and you beat me. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. I don't think we didn't bring it up on the show, but
well, after baseball, I figured this is the balancing act.
I in our league, I was the World Series champion.
So there you go. So
I don't have a ribbon or a medal like you do.
Yeah, I've got a medal.
Whatever. All right, I'm done with you. Say goodnight.
Good night.
This has been Just a Fantasy Fan podcast. And to keep your fantasies going, follow us at justafantasyfan.com. Say good night. Good night.